What's up, everybody? Want to make sure that you all can hear me clearly before we get started because I'm having to use a substitute for my normal streaming software today. So I want to make sure everybody can hear me clearly and closely. So give me a thumbs up when you do, and we'll go ahead and get it popping. Matter of fact, you can hear me? Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, as long as everybody can hear me, we'll go ahead and get started. So, first of all, what's going on, everybody? I hope everybody is doing well in this quarantine situation that we're in, aka the toilet paper apocalypse. We're staying busy over here in the household. It sounds really weird to say, the household, but nevertheless, practice your social distancing and make sure that you're taking care of, if you have any elders living in your household, but they seem to be dying at a higher rate, make sure that you're taking care of them when you go out to handle your business and all that good stuff. But other than that, I hope everybody's doing well and getting through these trying times. Now, why did I decide to go live today? Well, I'm sure most of you saw on Twitter already, but I wanted to announce my official endorsement of Bernie Sanders' 2020 campaign, because his communications director actually came out and said that Bernie Sanders plans on being in the debate in April when they hold one. And if that's the case, obviously that means he's planning on sticking in the race for at least roughly another month or so. And at first, I mean, I've always supported him, but basically it's come down to Bernie Sanders or an older version of Bill Clinton or Donald Trump. That's basically where we're at right now. Now, I do want to be clear about something. I am under no disillusion that Bernie is some type of perfect politician. He obviously is a progressive. He's obviously the best option we have, the most realistic option we have at the moment. But a lot of my critiques and my concerns of how he handled his campaign, like when it came to exit polling and kind of ignoring election integrity issues, the way he plays politics with a lot of his allies, or at least they would like to be allies with him, but if he can't gain anything from them, he doesn't take them as seriously as he should or build coalitions with them. Like we saw him build, like I said, stronger coalitions with Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker than he did with Tulsi Gabbard, Marianne Williamson, et cetera, et cetera. So those critiques do still stand, but my endorsements and my support for anybody and any candidate has always been primarily based off of policies. And at the moment, Bernie not only has the most progressive policy in the race, at least on the Democratic primary side, but policies that I support that I know have a potential to get through, but it would take a lot of finagling. It would take, a lot of effort from progressives and populists in Congress. If Trump is in office, realistically speaking, I don't know if Trump will sign election integrity legislation. I don't know if Trump would sign legislation that would end the war in Syria. I don't know if Trump would sign. Well, no, we do know that Trump didn't sign the bill to end the war in Yemen. I don't know if Biden would sign election integrity legislation. So, in the et cetera, et cetera. My point is, where the issues are most important to me, where these issues are really most important in addressing a lot of the structural issues we see in our society, I only have confidence, in one person. Even if he doesn't fight hard enough for election integrity, well, I'm a big proponent that it's not only one person's job to fight for that, although he has the biggest microphone and absolutely should be speaking out. It's still all of our jobs to fight for election integrity. It's still all of our jobs to introduce ballot initiatives, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have to wonder if this bailout bill goes through with the Bernie Sanders presidency, if it gets signed or not. It would not get signed Bernie Sanders would veto this legislation. He plays politics, but when it comes to cut and dry, black and white, there's no gray area type of situations, he's also a very shrewd operator. And so when he gets put in a position where his integrity could get publicly called into question, he will generally do the right thing. On the other side of that coin, we have a candidate in Joe Biden who just simply, damn the dementia. That's already a problem to begin with. But like, if your main goal is defeating Trump, not saying my main goal is defeating Trump, that's a kind of a 10A situation. I don't suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, for those of you who don't know. But if you are one of those whose main goal is defeating Trump, well, quite simply put, Joe Biden cannot get it done. He can't. There are more studies and more polls coming out showing that he's losing ground to Trump every single day, and we're in the middle of a recession. We're in the middle of an economic crash, basically. He can't get it done. Although I don't find it important to beat Donald Trump, quote unquote, I do find it important to make sure that Congress is filled with legislators who will see through a populist agenda. And with Trump, you increase the likelihood of that not happening, because people like Mitch McConnell, people like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio's, those people will continue to gain headway instead of having someone who can galvanize progressives and populists on the ground to get out, campaign, fundraise, and win. Now, make no mistake about it, I am very aware of the position that Bernie Sanders is in at this moment, because it isn't just Bernie Sanders. The entire progressive movement, if you consider yourself a progressive, is in a very tight spot. I am aware of the likelihood of Bernie Sanders getting the nomination. It's not high, right? However, like on Dumb and Dumber, if you've been watching the news, if you've been checking out Joe Biden's interviews, if you've been, feeling out the waters, and I know a lot of you are political junkies, so I know you have, then it's like on Dumb and Dumber. Once you get through a Joe Biden interview, hell, don't even watch the whole interview, watch 2 minutes. By the end of it, you're like, oh, so there's a chance. And what I mean by that is that Joe Biden, we don't even know if this man is going to make it through July. And what we need to start doing, while still holding Bernie Sanders accountable, is start letting the world, not just, the country, not just, but letting the world know where the voices on the ground stand. And one, it's not with Joe Biden, and two, and most importantly, it's with populist, progressive legislation and policy. And then 3 should be Bernie Sanders, because it should be policy over personality. That's where I'm at. First and foremost, I'm not with Joe Biden. In that situation, with that allegation, which we're going to discuss here shortly with Fiorella, that was bad. That was bad. And it's not like it's uncharacteristic based off of everything that we've seen. And when I say we don't need an older Bill Clinton, if you actually know the history of Bill Clinton, the man is very similar to Joe Biden. In case you didn't know, he's very, very similar to Joe Biden in his accusations from women, to all the accusations from those women being ignored by the liberal media, to being on the Democratic Leadership Council, which was funded by the Koch brothers and founded by people like Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden, who was a member. Pretending like you are working internationally with other countries to foster cooperation, and when in actuality what you're doing is putting your thumb on a scale and basically bullying anyone who will not capitulate to United States imperialism. Putting a nice, friendly face on true neoliberalism and neoconservatism with a dash of predator. That's basically Joe Biden and Bill Clinton in a nutshell. And if you understood all of the horrible things that Bill Clinton set forth because of his winning smile and nice personality. And, you know, he brought, what do they call it? What do I like to say? Civility. He brought civility to the White House. If you remember everything that was, all the things that Bill Clinton did, y'all, it was very similar to Trump in some ways. All the bad, horrible things, I mean, war crimes, people, that Bill Clinton has committed. You know what we're going to impeach him over Monica Lewinsky? Really? So with Biden, we're looking at a very, very similar setup. But ultimately, we know what that means. Not only, he says he's going to maintain the status quo. I want you to think about something. Joe Biden was obviously one of the main proponents for the ACA. Joe Biden being one of the main proponents for the ACA, he has to now acknowledge exactly how the ACA has contributed to this coronavirus crisis here in the United States. What do I mean by that? Ladies and gentlemen, how many people have been laid off? They said about 30% of the country, and that was like 2-3 days ago, has been laid off. 30% of the country. Now, why lay them off, right? I know conventional logic would tell you, well, I'm not paying them anything, so I shouldn't have to lay them off. They're not working hours and using up labor. If they can't work, they can't work. If we're closed, we're closed. So why do I have to lay them off? There's a reason for that. Because under Obamacare, under the mandate that that the ACA put in place for small businesses and businesses in general, but specifically small businesses are hurt by this, is the fact that small businesses have to pay out health insurance for every single employee, regardless of what your profit or debt is. It's employee based. So if you're a small business, thanks to the ACA, you may not be pulling in any revenue, but you still have to pay out health insurance taxes based off of however many employees are on payroll. Joe Biden is one of the primary contributors to this reality. He is one of the primary contributors to the failure of our economy amid this crisis. And it's the option between Joe Biden and the man who's fought for Medicare for all and single payer health care for longer than I've been alive, almost, maybe a little bit less. Not that young. But with single payer health care, this crisis looks a little bit closer to South Korea, where it never even got to Seoul, than it does right now in the United States, like compared to maybe Italy. And Italy has this situation's pretty bad, but that's a whole different discussion for a different day. But we have the facilities. We had everything that we needed, but the question wasn't, how do we get more tests, if you all recall? The question was, should they be free or not? Like under single payer healthcare, that's not a question. It's how many. Get what I'm saying? So when you're talking about, you can't, like, it's the sexual assault allegations in this coronavirus situation, it made it a no-brainer for me. Like I said, I already supported Bernie, but when his communications director came out and said, look, we're going to stay in at least until the next debate, which was a genius idea, by the way, considering everything that was going on with Biden. I think that's a very, very smart move. I'm glad he decided to stay in. But I want to say this before we go. Bernie, you got to fight. You got to fight. Like, you say it's not me, it's us. Here's the thing, though. The operative letter in us is you. In other words, all of us has to do their part. In order for all of us to do our part, it means you have to do your part. That's the only way us works. Okay? I know that was a lot, but you can follow me. We need you to call out election integrity issues. We need you to deploy your attorneys to handle business. Like, we can't continue to pretend that the Democrats are somehow morally or virtually superior to the Republicans when they're not. You can't think like a Democrat to beat the Democrats and Republicans. Just like Trump didn't think like a Republican to beat the Democrats and Republicans. That's not what he did. If you recall, he employed a very similar strategy to Bill Clinton, which was his catchphrase, it's the economy, stupid. And then what does he do? He plays on this idea, the fear mongering, like with super predators when it came to the 94 crime bill and being tougher on crime. That was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton touted how much stronger he wanted the military to be. That was Bill Clinton. Trump didn't think like a Democrat or Republican. He basically went into a guerrilla warfare damn near when it came to campaigning. But that's what it takes to challenge a system that is morally bankrupt and ethically vapid. You gotta call out, you gotta almost like, I won't say gaslight them, but you kind of gotta gaslight them. Like you kind of gotta make them question themselves. Oh, well, we think there was rigging here. And make them go, huh? Well, did we rig this? Did we rig this place? And we don't know. Maybe we should just get lawyers out there just in case. And we probably shouldn't rig the next one just in case they do decide to investigate. Like, that's what you have to do. You have to make them second guess themselves. But if you keep playing these games with them, you're never going to get change. That's a fact. So, but once again, the fact still remains, Bernie is unequivocally the best person left out of the two major parties. You know, we still have to fight on the ground for a strong populist movement, a strong anti-war movement, a strong election integrity movement. And let me just say, after this election is over, no matter how it turns out, the movement must get back to being focused but decentralized. That is when all populist movements are at their strongest. Is when they're focused. Black Panthers, the anti-war movement in the 60s, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all these movements that had quote unquote leaders, even the leaders focused on decentralization. They did not like being idolized. They always deferred. And it always was about the people. And that's what it has to be about. We cannot go back into this dogmatic frame of mind where we are looking for some deity to save us. Most marriage equality came through a couple who fought tooth and nail to get the same rights as us heterosexuals. That wasn't a congressperson. That was somebody who took that all the way up to the Supreme Court. The DNC fraud lawsuit, if it is won, it will not be won because of, if the Democratic Party is held accountable, it's not because some congressperson introduced it. The Civil Rights Amendments, we just talked about Martin Luther King, MLK, Black Panthers, Angela Davis, all of them. The war, like policy wars, culture wars, they're won by people on the ground, not by deities. All right? So we can appreciate what these people do for us, and we should. But they all have their limitations within their institutions. Right? You know what happens when you might be corrupt. You might be corrupt. You might be a bad politician. You might be a decent politician who makes some good decisions and some bad ones. But guess what happens when the entire narrative changes on you in an instance? And everybody starts paying attention to how you move. Well, you don't have to guess what happened. Look at what happened with the Democrats who all decided, you know what? I support Medicare for all now. And they all signed on to Bernie Sanders legislation. Look at what happened in the House of Representatives, where Jayapal put that coalition together. And they now all support single payer health care. When the narrative changes on the ground, from people having conversations, from people organizing, from people fighting, engaging, educating, all of a sudden, it doesn't matter how corrupt you are, you got to do what the hell is going to keep you in office. And when you don't do what keeps you in office, especially now, especially in the age of information, well, you end up like Paul Ryan, who got beat. Just saying. So that's what we have to do going forward. Remember that our movements are decentralized. Remember that Martin Luther King did not seek to become besties with Congress people, but merely use them as vessels to see his policies, the policies that he would have liked to see, the equity that he would have liked to see push through. You can be cordial, you can be friends even, but like, we should never put anybody up on a pedestal that is so great that nothing they ever do is worth criticizing because they're our last hope. Ladies and gentlemen, as long as you have air in your lungs, as long as you have some fight in you, and as long as you have Twitter and YouTube, the fight will go on, and no one person is ever our last hope. Not a single person is ever our last hope. Just saying. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into that live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.